There he goes. Another marker in. Okay, so once we have that sort of initial canvas going and we've got our build, I figure it's time to put our player in. Which means we have to like create an entire player object. So we want some kind, I think we called it like the player class. So let's create a player.rs. This is going to be a pub struct player. We know the player is going to have a few different things. We know the player is going to need a, well, it's going to have a mesh, but I think I'm actually going to store that in the main state. Instead, we're going to need, we need a location. We're going to want to like put the player down here on the left. So we need a location, and I'm going to want to use this as a vector. So I need to bring in vectors from GGEZ. So use GGEZ and algebra vector 2. All right, so this is going to be a vector 2 of F32s. So if I just want to like begin displaying the player, that's probably enough for like the location and physics stuff. I can add those in later as I need them. We also know that we're going to need the, we know we're going to want like the height and the width of the player. So the player height is going to be an F32 and the width is going to be an F32. And I believe our player is just a simple rectangle. I might have a circle on top of it. I don't remember, but it won't really matter for what like the obstacles that we have right now, at least, because they're just simple, things we jump over. So the body of our player is what's really important. Okay, so we knew we have a width and we have a height, and I think that's all we need to worry about right this second. So let's go ahead and implement on player so we can create public function new. Now, the player shouldn't really be concerned with where it starts because it doesn't know what the size of the canvas is. So we're going to bring in the location. And maybe I should do location X, which is going to be an F32, and location Y, which is going to be an F32. Now we're going to return a player. All right. So to create this, we're just going to return this player object. Our location is going to be a vector2 new. We're going to bring in location X and location Y. All right, easy enough. Now our height and our width, these should probably be just hard-coded in here. This is just what players are. So we're going to have a height, and we can just say, well, what if you're just 50 pixels? And our width, what if you're, I don't know, 15 pixels? And that's it. This returns us a new player. So this allows me to come down to our library, and we're going to want to store our player in here. So player, now we need to grab that. So I need to mod player to say that, hey, I have that other player file, and now use player to grab in that struct. And now I can say, okay, the player type on my game is a player, a struct. Okay, and so now my game is incorrect because it's no longer returning a player, so I need to fix that. We do know that when we create the player, we need that the location of where we're playing it, and to do that, we're going to need to know the location like where to place the player. And maybe we can do the same thing that we did with the other game, which is like start them up and then they fall down, and that's how the game starts. So let's do player, and we're gonna do player new, and then our location X. So let's just start with maybe 50 right, and we can just do 50 down. And that's it. That's all we have here. Of course, we're not using it, so it's complaining about that. If I want to display this player, I'm gonna need a mesh. So if I have a mesh object here, well, now we're gonna need to grab in. So use ggez, graphics, and a mesh. Also, I thought you would go up to the top when I auto-saved. I like to have my mods at the top, sometimes spaced out, just to make it easier to see. So we need a player mesh, and that's going to be of a type mesh. Okay, so that's a problem now. Now we don't have a player mesh. We need to create that. So I figured the player structure could be in charge of this. Try and sort your mods under your uses, otherwise you'll get eyeball cancer when you have a huge amount of imports. Oh, so you have your mods underneath. Oh, you're talking about like just not having them in between. Yeah, I was expecting VLS to like move them around, because it does move them the uses around. I figured it would do that to the mods too, but I guess not. So let's have another function here. So when I have like a pub function like this, that's like equivalent to like a static function off of a class. So we're going to do the same thing, and I'm going to call this create mesh, and this will create the mesh for the player. And I don't know exactly what I need right now. And well, actually, in a way I do. I know I'm going to need the context. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. So the context has to be a mutable reference. And so we're going to bring that in. So use ggez context. So that brings us there. And I also happen to know that we're going to want to return a game result, because an error could happen at this place. So along with context, we'll need a game result. We'll of course also need the mesh itself. So use ggez graphics, and then we're going to need the mesh and the mesh builder. So this way, the return here is just going to be the game result, and it's going to hold in a mesh. That's if it's successful, it's a mesh. You're just OCD when it comes to code readability. You even get annoyed by yourself sometimes. No, I'm like that too. I like to have like good looking code. I also like when your editor takes care of that and I don't have to worry about it, and you just hit save and it snaps into, you know, good lookingness, and that just, it's a good feeling to me. All right, so it's the LNS because we're not actually returning a game result here. So we need to actually get our mesh. So let's create our mesh here is going to be equal to a mesh builder new. And so this is where we have to figure out what is our player going to look like. So if we're just going to create a rectangle like that, then well, we just want a dot rectangle. Okay, so we need this draw mode thing. Let's bring that in. Draw mode. Okay, so draw mode, we're gonna have fill, so it's not an outline. And then this bounds rect, so we need to create a new rectangle. So that's off of graphics here. We're gonna have a type rect. Mesh Builder doesn't require this for everything. We don't need one for like circle, for example. So this is gonna be the essential like rect bounds for the player. So it's gonna be rect new, and it's just basically gonna say, where are we going to place this? To make this easy for math, and remember, easy for working with, I'm gonna have everything on this mesh be set on the 0 axis. You really enjoy placing your code, Alcohol? You know, yeah, there is also something nice about hitting save and then nothing changes too. That's also the case. I'm gonna set the X and the Y to be 0, which might seem a little bit strange. It's basically this top left corner of the window, but I'm gonna translate it into place when I draw it to the screen. So that way, the player struct doesn't need to know where it needs to be. It's just like, yeah, here's a mesh. It starts at 0, 0. And our width, well, we can now use, so this is a problem. We want to use like this height and width, but I don't think we have access to this at this point, because this height and width is is here. You know, I wonder if I can make this let's see, not there, up here. I wonder if I can do this as a const. So if I do const player height equals, and then I can just do like 50.0, a const player width equals, I think you want to be all caps, right? Oh, missing type. So these need to be typed. So F32. They need to be typed when I like generate it. And this will be 15.0. And now I can use these here. So player height, player width, and also here I can use this. So it's this width. This will be player width, player height. Add reference to self as a parameter. DBC, hello. So if I do that, I'm planning on making this the equivalent of like a static method that is like directly off of player. I guess I could do this. So that is one way to do it. The other way is I could, as DBC says, I could just do self like this. And then instead of this is a constant, I could do self.width and self.height. It sort of depends upon how I'm going to use it. I guess if I create the player first, then I can get the mesh off the player. Yeah, that probably works. So we'll do it. We'll do it this way then. And I agree, this is probably a better way of doing this. So instead of that entire constant, we'll just say this is 50.0 again and 15.0. Thank you, DBC. Dusty Posy subscribed at tier 1. Thank you so much for Dusty Posy. Welcome to the Builder Club. I don't have a nice cool name for it. Also, unfortunately, I'm sorry I don't have any emotes yet. I need to figure out which ones I do. I'm thinking the first one probably will be just like a Rust logo. But thank you so much for the subscription. Welcome. Okay, so now we have this. Our bounds rect is going to be our rect bounds. And then we have to choose a color for our player. I'm thinking maybe just like we could just do white. So there is off of graphics, there is a white constant. You don't care. Well, I guess good. Someday I'll have them. I know some people like them a lot, especially since you can use them on other people's streams. Which Alco, you're trying to do with somebody else's, but that didn't work. See that the heart works. That's CJ's, right? That's CJ's with Coding Garden. All right, so that gives us white here. Now, what are we missing? It's off of the rectangle here. It just returns the rectangle for that. So now I want to build this. We have to pass in this context, and then I want a question mark which returns the error as a game result in case it fails. Now, what are you expected? Oh, also, if there's no semicolon, it auto returns. And I need to return this as an OK if it's successful. Do I need to let expressions in this position? Wait. Oh, wait, I didn't want to do that there. Let mesh. I do want some, I forgot what my plan is. I usually do it the other way. I'm doing let mesh equals that, and then at the end of this, I'm doing OK, and then passing in the mesh like that. And so I'm returning the mesh that we built. Usually I watch on YouTube, first time. Oh, well, awesome. Welcome to the Twitch experience. The emotes you were using before are Overwatch League emotes. Oh, okay. I was wondering what like the owl was. You have 1 million particles at 10 to 15 frames per second. Oh man, if you have a chance, you should share that. You could do that on either like the Discord or probably on like CJ's Discord, and then I can I'll try it out on this Windows computer, and maybe next stream next stream that you're here, we'll play it up and see how it works. Anyway, so this creates our mesh. So now in our main library, we need to like store the mesh separately. I've seen the emotes before in the past. I guess I probably have. I mean, I've seen a lot of emotes. I just like there's so many of them, and I don't usually look at them as the raw name. So let's go ahead and load up this player mesh. So we need now to load the player separately. It's big GG. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, got it. So we have our player equals, and we're gonna bring this player up here. Then we want the player mesh. So player mesh equals, off of player, we're going to do dot create mesh, and we have to pass it in the context, and then question mark. So if I do question mark here, now I can game result my game. So I'm going to do that, my game, and that allows me to use the question mark at this point. Now player here, I don't need this to be a colon anymore. If it's the same variable, just like in ES6+ with JavaScript, I can just do player, and it's the equivalent of player : player. And so we'll do the same thing with player mesh. And of course, I need to wrap this in an OK, because it is OK. And this context underscore is what you do if you're not using a variable, so it doesn't give you a warning that it's not being used. All right, now we're going to have an error in our main file because it's not expecting this to when we create our game. So I'm going to unwrap, which basically says, hey, if there was an error, just crash, just like straight up crash the system to the command line, which is fine. And it'll print out whatever the error message was, but at least that's Rust makes us handle these errors so we don't like run into problems later. All right, so we created our mesh. Now in our main library, we want to draw the player to the screen, and that will probably be like what we end up, the end for today. So here's our draw code. We just need to do a graphics draw. So we passed it our context, and we passed it the drawable. We have that with a reference to self.playerMesh, and then these draw params. So I need that off of graphics, draw param. So draw param. I'm going to use the default draw params, and then I'm going to translate it to the correct location. So dest, and destination takes a point. Well, I'm thinking that it might be good to have some kind of method off of the player that returns the point for us. So instead of a vector2, we need a point2. A point2 and a vector2 are actually very similar. They just don't have the same, matrix math methods attached to them. Am I coding at my day job? I am coding at my day job. Instead of Rust, my day job is PHP and JavaScript. So pub function, and I'm going to call this get location. This is going to be a self. We're not going to need to mutate anything off of this, and I'm just going to return a game result. No, I don't think I need a game result at this point in time. I don't think we can run into an error here. So instead, I'm just going to return a point2 of F32. And I'm now going to return, so self, we're going to return a point2 new and self.location.x, self.location.y. So we're just going to essentially create a new point and return that. Yeah, it's not the latest PHP, but it is after PHP 7.1, so it's not terrible PHP. And we're rebuilding the entire app in new PHP, and we're also using Vue.js, which is super awesome and nice. I always thought it was funny when CJ started, he was doing Vue.js and I was doing React, and now I'm doing Vue.js and he's doing React, even though he loves Vue. You don't like JS really? It's messy and easy to write spaghetti code. You like the appearance of TypeScript though. Yeah, if you know how to use like JavaScript, lets you do whatever you want. All right, so here's our destination point. So we're going to do self.player, not player mesh, dot get location, and that gets the point for us. And at the end of this entire thing, we're going to question mark this in order for it to basically return that game result. And this draws the player to the screen. Let's see how it works. So we're going to do cargo run. It is great for creative projects. Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And there's our player. It's a beautiful player, isn't it? Totally. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right, and I think this is where we're going to leave off for today. And then next time we'll start working on adding in some physics, so it falls, it hits the ground, and it sort of stays there. And then we can have obstacles coming and moving from the right, and then we have to jump over them. So that'll be perfect. Anyways, let's go ahead and save and commit this. I have tons of these things in here. I will share well, unfortunately, because I had to like reset the keys for the chatbot with the repo does not exist right now. So I'll probably tweet out a location to the code once I get that up there with saving all this stuff up. So it won't be a problem. I guess we have